The screening guide is a best practice resource for understanding the screening processes that will be used to detect financial abuse of older persons during outreach and in-house services. The screening guide assists service partners to understand the background, utility, and provide guidance on financial abuse screening. It explains the informal and formal screening methods and important considerations for conducting screening. The purpose of screening is to identify whether the older person is experiencing or at risk of experiencing financial abuse. Informal screening, including observational and gut instinct, may reveal financial abuse risk quite separately from the outcome of any formal screening process. Screening tools should be applied in the knowledge that erosions of autonomy, such as financial abuse, arise out of an interplay of risk and vulnerability characteristics in the older person, perpetrator, and the environment. How an older person perceives the world, including immediate and wider influences, may impact on how they respond to and interpret screening questions. Many older persons perceive abuse as failure by families or society to value and respect older persons, and due to the diminishing social status as they age. There are also gaps between what an older person will perceive as abusive and what the law recognises as abusive. Conversations can help to bridge this gap. The Financial Protection Service will use field-based screening conducted during in-house and outreach services with the primary objective of detecting financial abuse. Observational screening, where no interview is undertaken, but the worker is in the presence of an older person and uses observational techniques instead. Service partners may also choose to use technology such as screening over the phone, but where possible, face-to-face contact is preferred. It's expected that in most cases only informal screening will be undertaken during outreach. Informal or formal screening may be undertaken during in-house services. Details of the formal screening tools are contained in the screening guide and set out in the practice manual. The following preliminary steps should be undertaken before all screening processes, whether formal or informal. Step 1. Making the older person feel comfortable enough to share personal information is the first challenge wherever the interview is conducted according to NAGPL. Let the older person know how long the process will take, including possible follow-up post-screening. Step 2. NAGPL reminds us that the environment must be conducive to effective communication, taking into account sensory, such as vision and hearing, deficits due to normal ageing processes. Considerations include available privacy, light, background noise, seating arrangements, and language. Step 3. Clients need to feel at ease and conversation needs to be warm, empathetic, and non-judgmental, according to Donna. The interviewer's ability to engage older persons is central to the success of any screening and assessment process, especially those that are undertaken opportunistically, such as in field-based outreach settings. The older person's abilities, cognition, memory recall, confusion, orientation must be considered. Step 4. The extent of initial information and consent needed will depend on the type of screening process to be undertaken. Step 5. Each screening process has a set of instructions and administration about scoring. These should be followed closely. Step 6 and 7 is to conduct the screening and then undertake scoring. The process for screening and scoring is set out on the forms annexed to the practice manual. We'll now work through the different screening tools, starting with the informal tools. Informal or pre-screening processes are ideal for use during outreach and can be used where the requirements of formal screening processes can't be guaranteed. Informal screening can be as simple as a conversation about the purpose of the financial protection service and the older person's interest in those issues. The service partner should then observe the older person and their own gut instinct reaction. Gut instinct arising out of a comparison between the sensory information and experiences during outreach and stored knowledge will be a useful tool for predicting risk of financial abuse. Indeed, as professionals with experience in working with older persons who have experienced abuse, service partners are likely to be particularly adept at intuitive or gut instinct predictions. As Van Malcolm explains, when you have a lot of experience in a certain area, the brain has more information to match the current experience against. I'm informed by the Caxton social workers that gut instinct is called practice wisdom within that profession, which I think is a particularly apt term. An alternative is to use conversational prompts that are based in older persons' conceptions of elder abuse or based in the healthy ageing paradigm. The practice manual includes high sensitivity pre-screening questions drawn from the OAFEM, which is a tool we will discuss shortly. These questions have a sensitivity of between 30 and 60%. They can be open rather than specific to a relationship influencer or a potential or suspected abuser. No scoring is necessary with the adapted pre-screening process, and positive answers to any of these questions indicate the need for an in-house referral. The high sensitivity pre-screening questions are set out in the practice manual and include: has anyone felt entitled to use your money for him or herself? Has anyone borrowed money from you and not paid it back? Have there been unusual activities in your bank accounts, for example, large withdrawals, frequent transfers of funds? There are 5 formal screening tools. The first, the Lichtenberg Financial Decision Screening Scale, the LFDSS, is a structured multiple choice interview that is administered in a standardised fashion. It's a brief 10-item screening questionnaire which examines a specific financial decision made by an older adult to assess their financial judgment and vulnerability to financial abuse. So, for example, where the older person is considering entering a sale of their home and going into a co-living arrangement, if they're thinking about gifting money, or making another major financial decision at the instigation of another family member. This tool should be used where the older person may be on the brink of or making a financial decision that could lead to financial abuse. It includes questions such as: what's the purpose of your decision? What's the primary financial goal? And who benefits most from this financial decision? The Older Adult Financial Exploitation Measure, the OAFEM, is the most comprehensive validated measure to date for assessing financial exploitation. However, the OAFEM has limitations. Because it's designed to measure how much exploitation has taken place in the past, it doesn't assess current performance-based financial judgment and decision-making capacity, such as understanding the consequences of a pending financial decision. The OAFEM defines the financial exploitation of older adults as the illegal or improper use of an older adult's finances or property for another person's profit or advantage. This is the OAFEM. It includes questions like whether somebody has borrowed money and not paid it back, whether the older person has been asked to sign documents even though they knew it wasn't in their best interest, and whether another person has changed a direct deposit out of the older person's account into their own. The OAFEM has been through several processes of shortening and has been reduced from a 79-item measure down to a 54, 30 and 25. It's also been further reduced to an 11 and 6-item measure. These are the 6-item and 11-item OAFEM. These tools can be used where there's not enough time to go through a whole OAFEM screening process, provided that you're looking to screen for financial abuse in the past. The Elder Abuse Suspicion Index, EASI or EASY, was developed to raise a doctor's suspicion about elder abuse at a level at which it might be reasonable to propose a referral for further evaluation by social services or adult protective services. While all 6 questions should be asked, a response of yes on one or more of questions 2 to 6 should establish concern. EASY can be used as a stopgap general screening measure. The limits are that results can be generalised only to cognitively intact subjects, and results may vary where there's any question of capacity. The EASY includes questions around reliance on others, being forced to sign papers or use money against the older person's will, and physical violence. We've created a screening workflow diagram to help you decide what tool to use when. As we mentioned on this slide, you need to decide what form of screening you will use, formal or informal, before starting your outreach service. After you've decided on the screening process, you can undertake formal or informal screening. Informal screening can be used to detect elder abuse generally. In terms of the formal tools, the LFDSS can be used where the older person discloses they're making a decision that might place them at risk of financial abuse. So, for example, loaning money or entering into a co-living agreement. To screen for whether a person is at risk or experiencing financial abuse, the OAFEM can be used for specific screening on the older person's past experiences. So, for example, if they disclose information about how a family member had taken advantage of them previously. And the EC tool can be used as a general screening measure to determine current vulnerability to financial abuse, but it should only be used where there's no question about the person's capacity. And finally, a word on capacity. The issue of capacity should always be approached on the basis that all adults are presumed to have legal capacity to make all decisions unless there is evidence to the contrary that rebuts that presumption. Service partners are not required to make determinations of capacity during outreach. Where there are concerns about capacity, the older person should be referred in-house. The Queensland Law Handbook for Practitioners on Legal Capacity is a best practice resource and provides effective communication tools for presuming capacity.